I'm I Won't Use a Number. Today, we're looking at Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's, and it's finally time for card games on motorcycles.
俺のターン。手札がゼロの時、効果を発動するハンドレスコンボ。だが手はある。相手フィールドにのみモンスターが存在する時、このカードはレベル4モンスターとして特殊召喚することができる。来い、レベルウォーリアー。さらにハイパーシンクロンを通常召喚。レベルウォーリアーにハイパーシンクロンをチューニング。集いし願いが新たに輝く星となる。光さす道となれ。シンクロ召喚、飛翔せよスターダストドラゴン。そのドラゴンこそシグナーの証。本気で向かってこい、許せ。さらにハイパーシンクロンの効果。ハイパーシンクロンを素材とするシンクロモンスターは攻撃力を800ポイントアップする。よ
し、スターダストの攻撃力が100アイドラゴンの攻撃力を上回った。
いいぞユウセ。
だがハンドレスコンボはどうする。
バトルスターダストドラゴン、響けシューティングソニック。100アイドラゴンは墓地のインフェルニティガーディアンの効果を得る。これにより戦闘では破壊されない。だが戦闘ダメージは受けてもらうぞ。
Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's takes place in the, I assume, distant future of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Universe. It's disconnected story-wise from all the previous series, with one notable exception that I'll talk about later. And there are some nods here and there for long-time viewers, but point is, if you want to dive in here, you should be able to. I never thought I'd be saying this about a Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, but it takes place in a dystopian future. The former island that was Domino City in the previous shows is now a run-down, ill-maintained slum where denizens are forced to recycle garbage from the nearby opulent and utopia-like Neo-Domino City. The Public Security Maintenance Bureau ensures that anyone trying to leave Satellite is either arrested or sent back. There's no system in place for people living in Satellite to move up the social ladder, and people living in Neo-Domino refer to their Satellite counterparts as scum, garbage, and trash. Of course, since this is Yu-Gi-Oh!, the ever-important Duel Monsters card game also factors into this. The game has changed. Kind of. There's now these machines called D-Wheels, motorcycles that people duel on, that people use to participate in riding duels. While the old form of Duel Monsters does still exist, on a professional level, riding duels are now the norm. It's just another thing that the people in Satellite don't get to have. Back when this show was coming out, a lot of people condemned the whole motorcycle thing as dumb and wrote off the show entirely. I honestly have no idea how prevalent that viewpoint still is, but I'm gonna throw in my 2 cents anyway. At its core, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always been kind of dumb. Matters of life and death or the fate of the world always come down to a children's fucking card game in this show. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime is inherently dumb at its core, and it very often embraces that and winds up being awesome and moving and fun in the process. Whether or not you can enjoy the franchise comes down to whether or not you can suspend your disbelief or even better, embrace the weird logic of this world. The point I'm trying to get at is, I don't understand why the sudden introduction of motorcycles would be the deciding factor one way or another on this. It doesn't make sense to me. And in many ways, riding duels are fun to watch. There's more motion happening. There's a little bit of danger there, and even though it's dumb, which don't get me wrong, it is, just like the rest of the franchise, there's also a part of me that thinks it's kind of awesome. Probably the same part of me that still really thinks Keyblades are cool. It also introduces some variety to the franchise. Riding duels have some unique rules, which are explained as the show goes on, so I won't get into it here. But the variety is nice. Holy shit, I haven't even introduced the protagonist and actual plotline yet. Okay, Yusei Fudo is living in Satellite. 2 years before the events of the anime, one Jack Atlas, the rival for 5Ds, stole Yusei's self-made D-Wheel and his treasured Stardust Dragon card. As the story begins, Yusei is trying to build another D-Wheel that will be fast enough to allow him to get to Neo-Domino City, avoiding security along the way, where he can challenge Jack to a riding duel and win back his Stardust Dragon. Meanwhile, those in control of Neo-Domino City are trying to master a sort of new energy source. It comes off as rather maniacal. As the rather intense duel between Yusei and Jack continues, a mysterious red dragon appears as their signature monsters clash, and there's a blackout in Neo-Domino. Jack and Yusei's birthmarks begin to glow, and before they can figure out what just happened, Yusei is arrested by security. Yusei is given a facial tattoo called a criminal mark that allows security to track him, just another fucked up aspect of the society, and the next few episodes find our main character surviving life in prison. Over the course of this series, we'll unravel what exactly that energy source is, what was up with that dragon that showed up, and how it relates to the birthmarks, all while dealing with the fucked up societal issues and prejudices present in this dystopia. I like it. I like it a lot. 5D's is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh series that I've finished thus far. Haven't finished Arc V yet, but that's in the running too at this point, and it's the easiest one to recommend. It doesn't have any major chunks of episodes that are bad. There are arcs not directly related to the main plot, but for the most part, they're enjoyable. The worst you'll get is individual duels that are underwhelming. There's only a few, and the only one I outright despised was the holding hands friendship bullshit duel. There's far more good and great stuff in here, though. Definitely worth trudging through the few underwhelming bits. There's no direct plot references to other series, so you can enjoy it on its own. Unlike the original series, the rules are established from the start, so we don't have that chunk of made-up shit, and the plot's just all around solid. It's engaging to watch, it takes place in an interesting setting, and I'd say that it stands side by side in quality with most long-form shonen action series. It's just that instead of punching each other, the characters play a card game, where sometimes the stakes are life and death. The card game is engaging to watch. I think the show does a decent job of explaining what's happening at each step. It always has, really, so even though there's not an outright tutorial in this particular show, at least I don't remember one, you should be able to easily follow what's happening and have a general understanding of the rules before too long. I say general because in the actual card game, once you start digging into the nitty-gritty card rulings, it becomes rather complicated, and honestly, even I don't understand the reasons why behind some of that stuff, but you'll understand what's happening in the show, and it provides a very natural balance of tactics and action. There's a specific rule set that the characters are engaging each other under, and playing within that rule set while trying to formulate and implement strategies while responding to the opponent doing the same is intellectually engaging, and this tactical battle plays out through usually holographic monsters beating the shit out of each other. It's fucking great. It's the same core appeal that Yu-Gi-Oh has always provided, and 5D's makes it the easiest it's ever been to enjoy, but it's by no stretch perfect. It still suffers from some of the problems that every other Yu-Gi-Oh series does. Some of the villains are evil to the point of absolute absurdity. I won't show the ones I'm talking about because spoilers. The female characters, specifically Aki and Ruka, consistently have the focus taken away from them in favor of time with the male characters. It's particularly bad with Ruka. The final duel against a villain is bad, just like always, because it's a big, dumb, overblown gimmick thing, not showing that either. Yu-Gi-Oh really doesn't like to kill characters, or likes to bring them back after they have been killed. 5D's isn't as bad as GX or Zexal, I know it's pronounced Zeal, shut up, in that capacity, but it is still a thing, and it's sometimes rather evident that major plot points weren't all planned out in advance, so sometimes the transitions between major story beats can be kind of awkward, or characters that should have been introduced earlier suddenly show up out of nowhere. Looking at you, Crow. None of these are problems that ruin the show, but they do hold it back. Still, the good far outweighs the bad, especially in the case of 5D's. In addition to riding duels, the introduction of synchro summoning does a lot to change up the game. I was confused by it when I first found out about it, but once I actually looked into it and gave it a chance, I found it to be fairly simple. Synchro monsters are summoned by a tuner and one or more non-tuner monster on your field, whose levels add up to the level of the monster you're trying to summon. Some synchro monsters have more specific summon requirements, like a specific material monster, or more often a specific type or attribute of monster. Most of the big monsters in 5Ds are synchro monsters, like Yusei's Stardust Dragon and Jack's Red Demon's Dragon. Everything about the presentation of 5Ds is strong, perhaps with the exception of 3D animation being used for certain monsters, and occasionally during riding duels. Even that I'm fine with, because the rules for its use are pretty consistent, and the transition between 2D 2D and 3D is never too awkward, but I can see some people really not liking it. Regardless of your thoughts on that, the monster attacks and movement during riding duels are exhilarating. The music is consistently astounding, especially Jack's theme and Clear Mind, and the vocal performances, especially those of Jack and Yusei, were top-notch. Actually, that reminds me, watch the Japanese version of the show. The English version is censored and kiddified, and near the end has entire episodes cut out. The cast of this one is super strong. Yusei's friends at the beginning of the series aren't super memorable, and they kind of become not relevant sooner rather than later, but the real core cast of duelists only had one character that I wasn't fond of, that being Rua, and I didn't necessarily hate him, just meh. Also, I low-key resent Crow just a little bit because his introduction feels rushed and forced, and I wish Aki had gotten the focus he got during later plot stuff, but it is what it is. I still like him though. Yusei manages to tread an interesting line for a protagonist, especially of a series like Yu-Gi-Oh! He cares deeply about his friends, but it never comes off as cheesy. And he's really fucking cool, but it never comes off as edgy. Jack occupies the same role as Kaiba did, an arrogant, self-absorbed, overdramatic rival who has the actual skill to back up his cockiness, and gets dragged kicking and screaming and all that hero stuff, but probably low-key likes being a good guy, just a little bit at least. He's my favorite. The emotionally tortured Aki comes in at a very close second. Seriously, I wish she was more involved after the bit that focuses on her. Like, she doesn't disappear, but nah. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's has 154 episodes. You should probably know if it's your type of thing by the end of episode 5, though the first major story arc ends after 26 episodes, so do with that knowledge what you will. There's a very non-canon OVA where Yusei and Jack duel each other. It exists to promote the Assault Mode cards. It's an alright time, but you can skip it no problem. And there's a very canon movie, Yu-Gi-Oh! Bonds Beyond Time. For Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's, it takes place between episodes 85 and 86, but it's a crossover movie between the original series, GX, and 5D's, where the protagonists of each of those series team up to confront a time-traveling asshole. It's a really good movie, and I think it's a damn shame that it involves Yu-Gi-Oh! GX for reasons I have explained rather thoroughly in a different video. Still, as someone who's seen all the shows, it was amazing. Maybe don't watch it if you haven't seen the original series and 5D's up to this point at the very least. Like, I feel like I can justify recommending it if you're familiar with 2/3 of the characters, but just one's a bit tougher. The movie assumes that you're familiar with all 3 characters. There are some narrative ties to 5D's. The villain from the movie is related to other 5D's villains, but you could definitely still understand the plot of 5D's without watching this. Like, it's just a minor thing that, like, kind of happens in the background, but it's cool if you pick up on it after you've seen the movie. Whatever. Point is, you don't have to watch it. If you've seen the original series and you reach this point in 5D's, boom, easy, watch it. You'll get most of it except why Judai has heterochromia and a space demon with him. If 5D's is the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Series you've seen, if you decide to watch the movie, just know that certain things are going to be treated with a degree of reverence and glory and like expected hype on the part of the audience, and you won't have the frame of reference to understand why. And if you're cool with that, then go for it. If not, you should probably skip it until you decide to go and watch the original series too, because that one's good too. But ultimately, it's your decision. That said, this has been Out Use a Number. If you like this video, you can subscribe and maybe share it with your friends. If you're willing and able, please consider supporting me through Patreon. Keep loving what you love, and I'll see you next time with something else.